Hey you guys, did you just get an Instapot or did you just pull it out of the cupboard after having it in there for a year? Well, I'm gonna go over 5 mistakes that I see a lot of people having confusion with, as well as 5 tips and tricks and just things that I like about the Instapot in general. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. So this is kind of like an Instapot review / just tips and stuff, and I have the luxe version, but all of these are pretty much the same, plus or minus a couple of features. Mine doesn't have the yogurt button. I think it's the luxe version, and I also got it secondhand. I've had it for about a year, so that is just a testament to the quality for me, I think. And just to let you know, no matter what model that you have, all of these tips and tricks will still yet be relevant for you. So hopping right into the 5 mistakes that I see people do with their Instapots, and the number one is not even using it. They put it in a corner and forget about it. My sister is guilty of this. I think she had hers, or probably I think she has 2, for like a year before she even pulled it out and used it. And she just barely started using it not too long ago, and she's stoked about it. So yeah, definitely don't make that mistake. You gotta pull it out and you gotta use it. The number 2 thing on my list is the pressure valve. People misunderstand this. This is the pressure valve, and on either side you have venting, and then in the middle you have sealing. So as soon as you close your lid, you should make sure that this is on sealing right there in the middle. If you don't have that on sealing, the pressure will not build and it's not gonna cook. You'll probably lose a lot of your liquid if you have liquid in there, and this won't build enough steam to lock the lid. So when steam does build inside of your pressure cooker, this will pop up, and that is what makes the lid lock. You can see when there's no pressure in there, that moves and allows you to open the lid. So when the steam is building up in there and this pushes out, it won't allow that to open. That's the safety feature. So you can quick release by venting it, but I like to keep it sealed and natural release. I just feel like it gets softer, but if you're in a hurry, you can go ahead and vent it. If you're steaming seafood or veggies, then you might not want to let it natural release. Then you would put the venting, because you could run the risk of overcooking your food. Whoopsie.
Like this is a little
so
kid
this
game.
is locked position. The steam is built up in there, so that way you cannot open the lid and get the steam in your face. And so now I can see, so it still is locked. Moving on to number 3, and that is time. The thing about the pressure cooker is that the cooking time is not the only time that you need to take into consideration. You also have about 10 minutes to build pressure, depending on how much liquid you have in there, and you're also going to need about another 10 minutes to release the pressure so that you can actually open the lid. If you don't want to wait an extra 10 minutes for your Instapot to natural release, you can just add a few extra minutes of cook time, and then you can vent. Okay, so the number 4 is confusing to some people. I think I should have put number 4 as presets, because I think what is confusing is what presets to use, and a lot of people say that you should just use the manual buttons. But if you learn your presets, then it'll be a lot faster than hitting manual and then hitting a whole bunch of buttons and settings. And for each model is different, because the bigger size that you have, then the more time you're going to need to cook, because it's a larger amount of food. And also you have more space in there that needs to be pressurized before it will actually start counting towards your cook time. So it's very specific towards your model and also your size of your Instapot. Also, the adjust button is to adjust the temperature of the slow cooking and saute modes between less, normal, and more, whereas the rest of the presets default to a high pressure. If you want to adjust your cooking times or you want to do it manually, you can just use the plus and minus keys to adjust the time values. And if you hit the minus key down past the 0, the time will set to 24 hours and count down from there. That could be confusing if you think that the plus and minus keys increase and decrease the heat, but those are just for the time. The heat values are used when you hit the adjust button, and then the pressure values are using the pressure button. Another thing that I do sometimes if I find that I need to reduce my liquid is I'll just leave the lid off and I will hit the saute button, and it'll be really hot. It'll stay really hot for a half an hour, and that will just help to reduce the broth and kind of thicken it up. So all this talk about presets kind of makes me start feeling a little bit confused myself. So just learn your presets, learn what times that they are. They're really not that hard. You just push the button and figure it out. If it's not the time that you want, hit off and hit another button. But learn them. They're a good trick. So I'm gonna move along. Real quick, I want to talk about the number 5 thing that is a mistake to do, or that people get confused about, is the liquid level. So you do have to have about a cup of either water or broth or something like that in order to not get a burn notification if you're going to be using anything in the pressure cooker, as far as like making it seal and all that kind of stuff. The only time that I don't do this is when I'm doing like a pork roast, and because I know that it's going to render out a lot of its own fat, and so usually by the time I open it, it usually is full of all that liquefied fat, and so that's the only time that I don't add liquid to my pressure cooker. Now we're at the part of the video where I'm going to talk about 5 tips and tricks and things that I just love about the pressure cooker. But real quick, if you guys haven't subscribed to my channel already, I would really appreciate if you would subscribe. It would just let me know that you guys like the video and keep me inspired to make more. Alright, starting off with the number 1 thing that I love about my Insapot, and that's that it can replace my slow cooker. So I lent my Insapot to my mother-in-law and never got it back, so I ended up getting one of these Instapots, and I love the fact that it can replace my slow cooker. And if you're the kind of person that really likes a crock pot, this can replace your crock pot. So for a long time, I used my crock pot, but this actually has a slow cook setting. And so just like on your crock pot, you can adjust the time. The same thing you can do with your Insapot. And so that is a really awesome thing, because you also have other functions, which I will get into later. I lied, I'm going to tell you about them right now. Number 2 is that you can start frozen, which is something really great because you can't do that in your crock pot. So what I have here, I've just tossed in some frozen pig's feet. I'm making pozole. This is one of my favorites, is to add pig's feet into my pozole. Don't tell the kids because they just ate it. They don't know. So anyways, what I'll do is I'll put this in even though it's frozen and let it cook, and then when it beeps, I will just hit off. And here's a clip for you. Now I can just let it release naturally, which I'll probably do, or it'll release naturally even if I turn this off and hit slow cook. That way, if I forget about this, it will still keep a high enough temperature that it's still cooking. And I don't usually pay attention to this time. I still will usually just, try to check it when it's almost dinner time, which that'll still be about 4 hours. I think it's like 12 o'clock right now, 12:30. So anyways, this is still pressure locked, but oops, I pushed something now. Okay, so yeah, that's what I do. I just turn it off and hit slow cook, and I'll leave it right there, and I should be done. My number 3 tip is something that I touched on a little bit earlier, and that's the preset. I know a lot of people say just to hit manual and then start hitting up, but who wants to hit that button 30 times? I don't. So I usually just hit soup broth, and I know that it starts at 30 minutes, and I think this is the normal it's like the medium heat, which is what I normally cook on anyways. And I think it does that. It doesn't hit high on this setting just because if you want a clearer broth, it won't it'll keep it clearer instead of having that high heat. Sometimes your broth will get cloudy. I don't really care about all of that anyways. I'm not like a chef. I'm just always hungry. Alright, so on to the number 4 thing that is like a tip or something that I love about my Insapot, is that you can start out on saute mode and you can brown all of your stuff. So right here, I'm just browning up a chunk of meat that I'm gonna turn into, I think I made the birria. And so this is something again that you cannot do in your crock pot. You always usually have to do this in a separate pan and then transfer it to your crock pot, and it's just something that I usually skip because I don't want to have to mess up another dirty up another pan. And so this is just something that I really love about my Instapot. And that brings me to my last tip, which is when you're adding your water, go ahead and add boiling water, and that will just make your cook time that much faster. You're not going to be dropping the temperature and waiting for that water to boil. It will save you at least a couple minutes on your cook time. And that's it. That's the end of the video, guys. I hope you guys, I hope that some of these tips and stuff helps you guys to not feel so scared to use your Instapot or confused about it. And I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching.